So thanks for coming, everyone. Thank you for supporting child abuse awareness with Darlene J. Clark. Be a part of the solution instead of part of the problem. Welcome to Child Abuse Awareness. I'm the host. Please come in and say hello. This is how my book looks. It's at Amazon. Shattered Innocence Rise. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Remember to speak up against child abuse. Thank you for watching. Please hit the bell icon to be notified when I have a show. Appreciate y'all. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use. Tips to balance in favor of fair use. We've got a doozy. I had to make sure to put up trigger warning. So Matthew 18, verse 6. But whoso shall offend one of these little ones, which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck, that he were drowned in the depth of the sea. I want to thank everyone for coming. Let's remember to advocate for our children. Put comments back up there so I can see when y'all comment. Your screen. Da-da-da-da. Can y'all see the screen okay? It's a secretive Christian sect coerced young mothers to give up their babies. This is Melanie Williams, Dr. Wally Baldwin, and Deb Adagio, pictured here several decades ago. So all the babies that were going through that certain place were called Baldwin, the Baldwin babies. Women who were once members of a secretive Christian sect in the United States have told the BBC they were coerced by the church into giving up their children for adoption. Hundreds of adoptions could have taken place between the 1950s and the 1990s, say former members. Some of the children who were adopted within the church have told us they were then subjected to abuse and neglect in their adopted families. The claims follow a BBC investigation last year into allegations of child sexual abuse spanning decades within the church, which is believed to have up to 100,000 members worldwide and is often referred to as the truth or the two by twos. The FBI has since launched an investigation. One of the story contains details some may find distressing. That's why I got trigger warning down here. 4 women who were all unmarried at the time have told us they were given no option but to give up their babies. 3 of them feared being cast out of the church and sent to hell if they refused. One says she was pressured into giving her baby to a married couple in the church after she was raped in 1998 at the age of 17. My fear of going to hell was so great that it forced me to make up my mind to give up the baby to this couple in the church, she told the BBC. And you did not deserve being raped. What about prosecuting the raper, the rapist, right? Another says she wasn't allowed to see her baby daughter before the child was taken away forever. The BBC has also spoken to 6 people given up for adoption as babies between the 60s and 80s. One woman says she was physically and emotionally abused in her first adopted family in the church, and second, wow, and sexually abused in the second. This is exactly what we're speaking of, okay, about this. Here's Dr. Wally Baldwin, pictured here with his wife, oversaw the adoptions of for the truth. Guess what? You are not really the truth. Guess what? You are more of a lie. You liar. You came to deceive and destroy. The adopted children born all over the U.S. are referred to within the church as Baldwin babies because the adoptions were overseen by Wally Baldwin, a doctor from the sect who died in 2004. Some of the women would stay at his home in Oregon, during pregnancy, according to a minister who used to work with Miss Dr. Baldwin. Wow. The exact number of Baldwin babies is unclear. The BBC has spoken to the late doctor's adopted son, Gary Baldwin, who said the original records were no longer available, but he believed the number to be less than 200. That's an adopted son, Gary Baldwin. So I'm wondering if it happens to be one of the children from the congregation. He said that inevitably mistakes were made by his father's vetting system, but that his intentions were good. Others we spoke to also said they remembered Dr. Baldwin fondly. Of course, there's going to be a lot of good in people. People have told my brother, "Oh, I got cherished memories of y'all's father." Okay, but she didn't know the facts about him doing these other heinous acts. Okay, because the truth has no official leader. The BBC instead contacted six of its most senior current officials, known as overseers, for comment. We received one response. The overseer told us any adoptions he was aware of had been done through legal channels, and he had heard some beautiful stories. Yeah, you may have heard some beautiful stories. I'm sure. I'm sure they're not going to put down the negative stuff that they done. Of course, they're not going to do that. One woman who was adopted recalled seeing hundreds of photos in an album Dr. Baldwin would keep of the children whose adoptions he had organized in the truth. Another man who was adopted told us he had personally connected with more than 100 Baldwin babies and mothers. I got this here at BBC confronts man who abused. Oh, that the church, founded in Ireland by a Scottish evangelist in 1897, is built around ministers known as workers, spread New Testament teachings through word of mouth. Most of the mothers the BBC spoke to believed in workers and the truth as an institution to shoulder most of the responsibility for the trauma caused by the adoptions. Exactly. If I keep this baby, I'm going to hell. Somewhere the church got off track and it became a fear based cult. And I was forced to make a choice, says Melanie Williams, 62, who gave up her baby for adoption January 1981. At 18, Melanie became pregnant after falling madly in love with a boy from her school. Not only were the pair unmarried, but the father was not a member of the truth and refused to become one. This meant that Melanie had committed a terrible sin in the eyes of local workers. I guess just because the fact that he was not with the congregation, but not the fact that she had unmarried sex, but the fact that it was not somebody that was with the church. Wow. The workers and her family decided that she could only continue to attend church meetings if she gave her baby to another family in the sect. If I keep this baby, I'm going to hell. If I keep the baby, I can't go home, Melanie recalls thinking. She gave birth in a Catholic hospital in Oklahoma where she was discreetly put in a room of her own. She remembers being shouted at by a doctor when she began to cry during the labor. Say what? Labor hurts. Man, callous, callous, callous. So callous. Melanie's baby was whisked away before it made a sound, and she says she didn't know whether she had a boy or a girl. The new mother was left wondering if her child might be dead. Of course, because it did not even make a sound in front of her, so she never knew if her baby. Oh, that had to be a nightmare for her. You can't even hold your baby, came the reply. Years later, Melanie managed to track her daughter down, but she didn't want to meet. She was probably brainwashed by the sect. You know what I'm saying? Melanie, Deb, and Charlene have all spoken to the BBC about feeling pressured to give up their babies for adoption. Deb Adagio 54 was also unsure about giving up her baby, but felt too much pressure at the time to refuse the workers who threatened to ban her from church meetings, which in the truth meant you not only got thrown out of the church, but also ended up in hell. So glad that their God. Aren't y'all so glad that the God, they can say who goes to heaven and who goes to hell. See that? Wow. They got more power than, wow, that's what they're trying to say. She became pregnant after being raped in 1988. And that's not her fault. Recalling holding her newborn, she says, I can still feel her against my chest right now. In our last moments together, I remember just cuddling with her and telling her that I loved her and that I was sorry over and over again, she adds. I had to let her go. I had no options. David, Deb later met her daughter. They are no longer in regular contact. I'm so sorry, Deb. I'm so sorry. They're seen here in the 80s around the time of her pregnancy. Charlene Ecker, 63 from Iowa, says she never stopped thinking about the daughter she felt her parents pressured her to give up in 1982. She briefly got to hold and feed her newborn before they were separated. Charlene would hold a private birthday celebration for her daughter every year. When her birthday would come around, I would get her a birthday card, and a couple times I made a cake, she says. I would journal a lot too, wondering where she was, what she was like, what she might be going through at the age she was. Then in 2004, Charlene's daughter got in touch by email and they met. They are close today. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's one case where it really worked out for the lady. When we finally met, we just hugged and hugged and hugged, said Charlene. We talked for like 2 or 3 hours on the phone. She's a pretty incredible woman. Adopted babies left open to abuse. Those interviews said the adoption system involved very little vetting and the setup, the potential for abusive situations. They said when a baby was on the way, Dr. Ball would contact workers for referrals and they would recommend the family in the sect to place the child with. Good way to get a lot of predators involved. Of the six Baldwin babies who spoke to BBC, two faced sexual, physical, and emotional abuse in their adopted families. Well, one said she had been subjected to emotional abuse by her adopted family. One woman said she was removed from her first adopted home by social services because of extreme physical abuse and was placed in the home of a church elder, a person of seniority who holds meetings in their own home, and his wife. She said the couple started sexually abusing her within weeks when she was 15. The couple. She did not say just the man. She said the couple, which means the wife was sexually abusing her as well, y'all. Whoa. If you are affected by any of these issues in the story, visit the BBC Action Line. Another woman said she was beaten by her adoptive parents on a daily basis and sexually abused by an uncle and her adopted family when she was 5. You're like an ankle sore, you know? So I guess that's why I was thinking ankle, because you're like a sore. Since reports of widespread child sexual abuse started spreading within the church 2 years ago, former and current members have started connecting in Facebook groups, including Baldwin mothers and babies. The moms, I know how they feel and have so much empathy for them. I cry for their stories when they write them. But for myself, I cried all the tears I could cry, says Deb. Deb, you'll be amazed. When I thought I was cried out, then another time it just started coming out recently. It has been like finding my tribe, says Melanie. I'm not alone anymore. Our moms were afraid to hug us. Our dads were ashamed of us, and the church would only accept us if we made the ultimate sacrifice. And all these years later, we're all going to be okay. Amen. So here is where, let's go to the top up here. I was reading it on earlier. This is how the magnitude of it is, all right? Just put in mind, this is only one sect. This is only one thing. So there's other ones that's dealing with this too. BBC confronts a man who abused a boy in a secretive Christian church. Right here is Lauren Rose, ROHS, Sherry Autry, and Michael Habit, pictured here as children. Yes, depraved people. Hi there, Dandy. Good to see you. Robert Corfield, a man who abused a boy in Canada in a secretive Christian church in the 80s, has spoken publicly about what happened for the first time. He was confronted by the BBC as part of a wider look into the claims of child sexual abuse spanning decades within the church, known as the Truth. Tell you what, that is really not the truth. It's all lies. His name is one or more than 700 given by people to a hotline set up to report sexual abuse within the church. Wow. Over 700 given by people to a hotline. And you got to know that's not even the whole list of it. A lot of times we ain't going to know the full number. The Sect says it addresses all abuse allegations. I'm sure you do, but are you reprimanding the people that does it? What are you doing? The church, which has no official name, but is often referred to as the Truth, the Way, or the Two by Twos, is believed to have up to 100,000 members worldwide, with a majority in North America. The potential scale of the abuse has been captured through a hotline set up last year by two women who say they were also sexually abused by a church leader when they were children. People have phoned and claiming they too were abused, with testimony stretching back decades through to present day. The highly secretive and insular nature of the church has helped abuse to thrive, says former and current insiders who spoke to BBC. It has many unwritten rules, including that followers must marry within the group and keep mixing with outsiders to a minimum. Yeah, it's like a cult. The church was founded in Ireland by a Scottish evangelist in 1897 and is built around ministers spreading New Testament teachings through word of mouth. One of its hallmarks is that ministers give up their possessions and must be taken in by church members as they travel around spreading the gospel. This makes children living in the homes they visit vulnerable to abuse, the insiders said. And it's happened. I done read down a little bit. Wow. So Robert Corfield told the BBC he sexually abused Michael for 6 years. This dude right here sexually abused him for 6 years. Do you feel much of a man for doing it, sir? Mister? Former church member Michael Havet, 54, told the BBC he was abused by Robert Corfield in the 80s from the age of 12. People called me Bob's little companion. I just felt dirty, and I still do, says Mr. Havet, speaking from his home in Ottawa. You got to know how it does affect the kids. You feel dirty. You feel shameful. After abusing him, Mr. Havet said Mr. Corfield would force him to kneel beside him and pray. I had to work hard to get past that and find my prayer life again. I'm sure that that guy's prayers weren't answered when he just kept doing this sadistic act towards the children. When confronted about the child abuse allegations by the BBC, Mr. Corfield admitted that they had taken place for about 6 years in the 80s. I have to acknowledge that's true, he said. Are we so sure that you actually quit? Because the perpetrator continues on a lot of times. Yeah, it's something you never get over. You are right, Dandy. Mr. Corfield was a minister, y'all. Wow. Known within the sect as a seer, Saskatchewan, I don't know how to say that name, Saskatchewan, Canada, at the time of the abuse. This is the first time he has publicly admitted to child abuse, though he has previously been confronted by church members and wrote two private letters to Mr. Havitt in 2004 and 2005, which asked for forgiveness and said he was seeing a therapist. In one letter, Mr. Corpus said he was making a list of victims. What? See, I told you there were others. I told you. He wasn't the only one. Because they just don't find one. See? Oh, man. We don't want to miss anyone who has been a victim of my actions, he wrote. Wow. However, when asked about this by the BBC, Mr. Corbin said that there were no other victims in the same sense that Michael was, and that he had given two or three other teenagers massages. There were other victims, maybe not in the same way, because maybe some of them other victims were female, and maybe because this was a male, you sodomized instead. You know what I'm saying, people? But he said there's other victims that he sexually abused. These people make me mad. Abuser given the fresh start. Mr. Habit is among a dozen people who have told the BBC that widespread abuse has been ignored or covered up in the truth for decades, with some of the accused remaining in powerful positions for years. There's other churches that I know of where this is going on, and I got a friend right now in danger, and by police and stuff, they are harassing her badly. So I'm not going to say names, but please pray for her because she's trying to get justice for what happened to her and her brother and other people in that church too. The way his own case was dealt with by the church is a prime example, believes Mr. Havitt. He reported his abuse in 1993 to Dale Schultz, Saskatchewan's most senior church leader, known as overseer. Overseers are the most senior members of the church, and there is one for each U.S. state and Canadian province where there is an active following. Oh, overseer, y'all doing this. Boy, you're supposed to be a protector of the children. That's what the Bible says if you're a true Christian. But Mr. Schultz didn't go to the police and says Mr. Habel violently assaulted him a few weeks later because he thought he had told others of the abuse claims. Wow. Wow. He grabbed my shoulders, yelling at me, slamming my head against a concrete pillar, says Mr. Habit, splitting it open and causing it to bleed. Oh, man. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Poor child. Mr. Habit says Mr. Schultz then encouraged him to leave the church while his childhood abuser, Robert Corfield, was just moved to be a minister across the border in the U.S. state of Montana. Oh man, y'all been a victim of Robert Corfield, and you are older. Please get this out there because he's saying that he never did anybody else essayed in that way that he did Mr. Habit. Mr. Corfield told the BBC that he believed it was Mr. Schultz's decision to send him to Montana, where he remained in post for 25 years. So instead of reprimanding them, you move them around to other locations and they could re victimize other people. It was suggested it would give him a fresh beginning and probably also put space between me and the victim. He said, oh, and these girls are going to hell because they got pregnant and had a baby, but they go to hell if they don't give them up. But you're allowed to rape and sodomize these kids, and you think you're going to heaven? Boy. Mr. Corfield was removed as a minister last year after being confronted about Michael's abuse by another congregation member, according to internal church emails seen by the BBC. One email also suggested it is possible there may be additional victims. Of course, Mr. Corfield did that on earlier up here where he said that he was right. He believes everybody needs, he's writing a list on the different people he done, remember? The ex-minister told the BBC that he voluntarily stepped down when the accusations of Michael were presented against him, that he had not been informed of any allegation before that. Bull crap. I call that utter BS, okay? When contacted by the BBC, Dale Schultz said via email that much of the information that you have received concerning me is distorted and inaccurate. Of course, deny, deny, deny. That's what y'all do. Deny, deny, deny. Okay? However, he declined to go into any further detail. There's a global crisis. Mr. Habit is one of more than 1,000 current and former members of the Sect who have contacted a hotline set up by campaign group Advocates for the Truth. Y'all look that up if y'all were a victim of this. The group was founded last year by Americans Cynthia Lyles, Lauren Rose, and Sherry Autry. They say they have been given the names of more than 700 alleged perpetrators in 21 countries, including the UK, Ireland, Australia, and Russia. They plan to build cases against those on the list and take them to the police. All the women used to belong to the truth, and Lauren Rose and Sherry Autry say they were abused by the same man. That man was Miss Rose's father, a senior minister called Steve Rose, Rohs. He needs looked into, and I wonder if he's ever been charged with anything, but I doubt it. Lauren Rose traced Miss Autry after reading her anonymous online account of childhood sexual abuse in 2019. In the post, Miss Autry described how her abuser would sing Man Eater by 80s pop duo Hall & Oates to her when she was in his bedroom at night. Wow. Mrs. Rose knew immediately that the man being described as a perpetrator was her own father as it was the same song she remembers him singing to her as a child. I sat there, stunned, says a 35-year-old. It disoriented me beyond belief. She says that her father subjected her to years of sexual, physical, and emotional abuse from as early as she can remember. So sorry, sweet lady. I'm so sorry. Meanwhile, Miss Autry says Steve Rose stayed at her family home in Tulare County, California for 2 months in 1982 when she was turning 14 and molested her daily. He would sing man eater because a part of the manipulation was that I was his wild seductress, this 54-year-old says. Wow. He was the one to blame, not you, girl. He was. There's a 20-year age gap between the two women. By the time his daughter was born, Mr. Rose had given up his role as a worker and started a family in San Diego, California. How many of those are you essaying there, Mr. Rose? They later moved to Washington State, Idaho, and California. I mean, Colorado, sorry. Wow. So it's in Colorado, other places around. Whoa. They move around a lot, you know. Lauren Rose says the father gave various reasons for their constant movement, including that God needs us in a new place. We constantly moved as well. Y'all that know my story, just let y'all know. We have moved within 2 or 3 years, a lot of times, every 2 or 3 years or so. The BBC put all the allegations to Mr. Rose in emails and social media messages, but he did not respond. Well, sometimes when we moved, it was like even a matter of months, a matter of weeks, a matter, we never know. Next thing we know, we're at a new place. Abuse culture persists. Mrs. Rose says during her time in the church in the 90s and 2000s, workers were like demigods and never questioned, and that callers to the abuse hotline confirm that this culture persists today. Y'all see that? It still goes on today. And we know that. But it's good seeing it in black and white, right? That Mr. Habit, Miss Audrey says she spoke out about her abuser and he was protected. But you know what? Even if he don't have to face the repercussions here on earth, he's got to face the maker one day. In 1986, she confided in her mother about being abused by Steve Rose. I felt scared, dirty, ashamed, embarrassed, and guilty, says Miss Autry, who was 17 at the time and believed she would be in big trouble because an adult usually blames you. But her mother believed her right away and reported the man to the California state overseer who has since died. Uh, which one died? The mother or the California state overseer? That's not very clear there, right? Yeah, you reported her, but reported him. Did he ever go to jail? In a letter dated May 11th, 1986, written by Mr. Rose and seen by the BBC, he admits to the overseer that he and the teenager did kiss and touch each other intimately, and that he had begged for forgiveness ever since. Mr. Rose was later brought to Miss Autry's home by workers where he verbally apologized to her. I responded that he was not sorry for what he'd done, or he would have apologized long before. I think you just got apologized for the fact that more people found out what you were doing. So you wanted to make it look good. Despite admitting to child abuse, Mr. Rose remained a respected and influential member of the church. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? He still remained. Look under. Okay, I will. I'll be sure to write that down before I sign out of here, so I'll have that link. Thank you so much, Chris. His daughter says he was even promoted in 1994 to being a church elder, a person of seniority who holds meetings in their own home. Wow. They knew that he did these actions and they promoted him. The BBC understands he now lives in Minnesota with Miss Rose's mother. Their daughter is estranged from them both. I don't blame you at all. Stay estranged. He works as an insurance agent. Oh my word, because he goes into a lot of homes where there's kids. Also, he worked and was an active member of the Truth until April last year. After his daughter and Miss Audrey brought their allegations to the state's overseer, he was removed from meetings. Why did it take so long, huh? The floodgates opened. The catalyst for the hotline was the death of Oregon's overseer, Dean Brewer, in 2022. He was one of the Truth's most respected leaders and had worked for the group for 46 years across 6 U.S. states. An internal letter was written by his successor, which stated Mr. Brewer had a history of abuse, including rape and abuse of underage victims. Hey, Bill, how you doing? California State Overseer is the church overseer. He's the one who had died. Is okay. Friend of the family. Thanks for letting me know that, Bill. I appreciate that. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. It is not clear what the motivation behind writing the letter was, but it leaked and soon found its way onto Facebook and TikTok. Then more people started coming forward to tell their own stories of abuse. I think we thought the hotline was solely for Dean Brewer victims, but what the hotline did was just open the floodgates, Miss Brewer said. The friends say they now want the kind of justice they didn't manage to get for themselves. When I found Sherry, it was a really rather rare and massive healing. Thank you for bringing her into your life. That helps you to heal. That's amazing. It has been distressing as survivors to go back and hear the amount of filth and evil, Miss Autry says. Ours is bad enough, but to see other people in such terrible situations, it's beyond angering. It's been ugly, but also very rewarding. Miss Autry stepped down from the advocates in December. That's Michael Habet continues to be affected by the sexual abuse he experienced as a child. Of course, it's going to affect you. Thanks for being an advocate and getting your story out there and letting it be known. Because how can it be helped unless we as people who have went through don't speak out? We've got to speak up. Because the truth has no official leader, the BBC instead put the allegations to more than 20 overseers in North America by email. I think that's probably the end of the. No, there's still a little bit. The only one to respond was Rob Newman, the overseer for California. We actively address all abuse allegations involving participants in our fellowship. He wrote in an email before Mr. Corfield's confession. Our paramount concern is that victims receive the professional help that they need. We take all allegations of abuse seriously, strongly recommend mandated reporter training to all, and encourage everyone to report issues to the proper legal authorities. Ms. Autry believes change will not happen before any culpable overseers are jailed. It's an extremely well oiled machine for criminals, she says. It's a perfected system that has gone for 12 decades. So remember, they're getting these women, teenagers that's pregnant and get them to give their babies away to other people in the church. Hey there, good to see you. Welcome back. I'm glad you are here. Thank you so much. Could y'all please hit the thumbs up as well? I appreciate y'all. Make sure to copy that information down that you had wrote. Hopefully, it would end up helping me out. There we go. Copy Flake Doll. That's in Blair County, Cambria County, two in Blair County, one in Jefferson County. Okay, hold on a second. Well, I write all that information down. UJS portal dot PA courts dot US, one in Cambria County, two in Blair County, one in Jefferson. Okay. Thank you so much for that, Chris. I really do appreciate that. I really let me show y'all something I think I need to go over another day too, okay? Y'all we get shocked about this. Let me present this. The also using AI generated child sex abuse images targeted with new laws. They're actually getting like a picture of your child off of Facebook or somewhere, and y'all need to know about this because I did have a story on this before. And if your child is anywhere on the internet, they can take a picture of your child's face, whatever. Use a different body from AI, okay? Then they go ahead and make pornos using your child's face. So then they end up trying to say, look, I got you, doing this. And that's what's wrong. And these are really hurting a lot of kids. So y'all, please be careful about sharing your kids' photographs online. I want to warn y'all about that, okay? So this is a very bad thing that's going on with our kids, and they're getting threatened by the online from these people making these videos. Okay, I'll let you know. So I appreciate y'all, and I got your email. I'll let you know on that. Okay. But thanks everybody for coming. I appreciate y'all. And God bless you. Y'all have a great day. Does anybody have any questions? You said that you saw that, Phil. California State Overseer is a church overseer. He has a wound, one whom had died as of this writing. This reminds me of the movie Friend of the Family. Yeah, I want to check out movies and stuff like that. That would give more insight to help us out too. His Friend of the Family is on Peacock for anyone interested. The story of John Broberg's multiple year abuse. Wow. I better make sure to write that down myself. Friend of the Family. On Peacock. Okay. The story of Jan Broberg's multiple year abuse. Awesome. Thank you so much for doing that. Yeah, God bless you too. Y'all pray for me because it is going to be difficult. I asked a friend who can validate, who knows a lot of my story and knows a lot of what I'm saying is true. and hoping that he will come into the chat Monday night to validate what I have to say. Oh, Jan is the 12-year-old girl. Bless her heart. It's always sickening for these perpetrators to do these heinous acts. So when I trust somebody, I can even show them a picture of my handler. Because I actually got a picture of my handler on my phone. Okay, well, y'all have a good one. And God bless each and every one of y'all. Thank you so much. Be hyper vigilant. Thank you.